January 9th, 2007. Mike Lazaridis is jogging on his home treadmill. He's the co-CEO of Research in Motion, the company that makes BlackBerry. On the TV in front of him, Steve Jobs is holding up a glass rectangle. Lazaridis stops running. His first thought isn't about competition or features, it's physics. How did they do that? He can't understand how AT&T's network could possibly handle that much data. The next morning, he pulls his co-CEO, Jim Balsillie, in front of a computer and makes him watch the keynote. These guys are really, really good, Lazaridis says. This is different. Balsillie's reply becomes the epitaph for an $85 billion company. It's okay, we'll be fine. They weren't fine. In January 2010, BlackBerry held 43% of the US smartphone market. 6 years later, their global share was below 1%. This is the story of how the company that equipped 90% of Pentagon devices, ran Obama's personal communications, and invented mobile email convinced itself for 6 straight years that the iPhone was a fad and keyboards were forever. Lazaridis understood the threat privately. Sometime in the summer of 2007, he cracked open an iPhone in his office. He liked doing what he called desktop autopsies on competitor phones. His desk was littered with disemboweled Motorola's and Nokia's. When he opened the iPhone, he was stunned. They've put a Mac in this thing, he told his engineers. The iOS build used 700 megabytes of memory, more than 22 times the computing power of a BlackBerry. If this thing catches on, we're competing with a Mac, not a Nokia. He understood. He never acted on it. Instead, BlackBerry's leadership spent the next 3 years saying things like this. Balsillie in November 2007. Try typing a web key on a touchscreen on an Apple iPhone. That's a real challenge. Lazaridis in May 2008. The most exciting mobile trend is full QWERTY keyboards. I'm sorry, it really is. I'm not making this up. And Balsillie on tablets in 2010, 6 months after the iPad launched. The only app you really need is the browser. You don't need an app for the web. Inside BlackBerry's headquarters in Waterloo, Ontario, the keyboard wasn't just a feature, it was a religion. 4 commandments governed engineering: the satisfying metal-backed click, multi-day battery life, minimal bandwidth use, enterprise-grade encryption. These were competitive advantages in 2005. By 2010, they were weights around the company's neck. The keyboard obsession nearly destroyed their relationship with Verizon. In August 2007, 8 months after the iPhone launch, Lazaridis pitched Verizon on the BlackBerry Bold, an all-keyboard device. Verizon, shut out of the iPhone by AT&T's exclusive deal, wanted an iPhone killer with no physical keyboard, and they wanted it in 9 months. RIM's engineers told Lazaridis it was impossible. He agreed anyway. The result was the BlackBerry Storm. It launched in November 2008. Every key press required pushing down the entire 3.25-inch screen on a single mechanical switch beneath the glass. Edge presses registered unreliably. There was no multi-touch, no Wi-Fi. David Pogue's New York Times review: I've got a better name for it, the BlackBerry Dud. How did this thing ever reach the market? When automated test machines kept breaking the screens, RIM hired University of Waterloo students to sit in chairs poking glass for hours. By spring 2009, Verizon summoned Balsillie to New Jersey with an ultimatum: make us whole on the money we spent fixing your storm problems, or we'll revisit our entire supplier relationship. Verizon demanded $500 million. RIM negotiated it down to more than $100 million in free repairs. Within 2 years, Verizon's BlackBerry sales collapsed from 95% to 5% of their smartphone sales. But the biggest missed opportunity wasn't hardware. BlackBerry Messenger, launched in 2005, invented read receipts, delivery confirmation, and PIN-based identity, the entire grammar of modern messaging. By 2013, it had 60 million users. WhatsApp launched in 2009, explicitly copying BBM's design. In 2014, Facebook bought WhatsApp for $19 billion at 450 million users. Balsillie had a plan: make BBM cross-platform, license BlackBerry's OS to Chinese manufacturers, charge carriers $1 per user per month to replace SMS. He believed it could save the company. Lazaridis vetoed it. Thorsten Heinz, who replaced the co-CEOs, killed it again in 2012. BBM finally launched on iOS and Android in October 2013, roughly 4 years too late. During BBM's 5-month delay that summer alone, WhatsApp added 200 to 300 million users. The end came fast. In 2013, BlackBerry's new Z10 touchscreen phone flopped so badly that returns exceeded sales at AT&T and Verizon. The company wrote down $934 million in unsold inventory and laid off 4,500 people, 40% of the workforce. At the BB10 launch event in January 2013, BlackBerry unveiled Alicia Keys as their global creative director. 10 days later, she tweeted from an iPhone. Her response? She'd been hacked by a Drake-obsessed hacker. Here's what haunts me about this story. Lazaridis knew. He opened the iPhone, saw they'd put a Mac inside, understood it would change everything. The failure wasn't seeing the future. The failure was believing his customers didn't care. And for 3 years, he was right. Enterprise ET departments, governments, and Wall Street didn't care about touchscreens or apps. They cared about security and keyboards. By the time those customers changed their minds, it was too late. Years after being pushed out, Lazaridis still described the iPhone's impact in terms of carrier business models, not the product itself. There was a point where the carrier, by changing the rules, forced all the other carriers to change the rules. He never quite accepted that the phone was the revolution. The carrier was just the accomplice. Kim Kardashian, speaking at a tech conference in 2014, said this: "BlackBerry has my heart and soul. I buy them on eBay. I have anxiety, I'll run out." She was hoarding BlackBerry Bolds to protect herself from a product whose makers convinced themselves she didn't exist. Her last BlackBerry died in August 2016. Sometimes the hardest thing to see isn't the future, it's that your present is already over.